Hi there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to Reading Aristotle's Politics. Today we're looking at chapter 10 of book 1. As we said, we talked yesterday when you listened to this, um, you looked at the question of money making and discussion the idea of getting through retail trade or commerce and money making for money making. Um, Now he's going to continue a little bit of this question about what is again, he's going to return to a question of what's going on here, about what getting goods and what is it connected to the household and the city. Chapter 10, it is clear that the answer to, is, it is also clear that what the answer is to the question raised at the beginning, whether the art of getting good belongs to an expert of the household or political ruler or not, but should rather be available to him. In other words, it's not the same thing. In other words, it's not. In other words, the arts of getting goods. A household manager and political ruler. It's not about getting goods. It is not. Therefore, it's a separate art. But it rather should be available to him. That is, for just as political expertise does not create human beings, but makes use of them after receiving them from nature, so also should nature provide land and sea for something else for sustenance, or something else for sustenance, while it berefts the household manager to have what comes from those things in the state it should be in. In other words, sustenance comes from land or other things. Land, the animals, you know, these things. In other words, land and sea. Sustenance is the things you need to live: food, in some way shelter, um, sustenance is therefore nature provides you what with land and sea and something else for sustenance. And in other words, it's also manager to have what comes from these things and in the state they're in, right? For it does not belong to the art of weaving to make wool. Uh, uh, um, uh, for it does not belong to the art of weaving to make wool, but to make use of it, and to know what sort is usable and unsuitable for poor and or suitable or poor and unsuitable. In other words, what's usable and suitable versus what's poor and unsuitable. In other words, weaving doesn't make wool. Wool itself is gotten one way. The weaver takes the wool and uses it, but he has to know about the wool. He has to know what wool is again good and usable, what sort is usable and suitable, and what is poor and unsuitable, right? Otherwise, one might raise the question why the art of getting good should be part of the household management, but not in the medical art, since those in the household ought to be healthy, just as they must live or do any other necessary thing. In other words, why isn't it part of why isn't things like medicine part of it and not the medical art? Well, good. In other words, it is. In other words, what we make an error. We assume they're the same thing, but they're not. Whereas the same could be said about and it's useful for us to do it, right? As being healthy, and therefore the medical art would be useful in that sense, right? But it's not part of it. Medical art is not part of household management. No, neither is technically. Um, well, there is the usage of it, right? In a sense, um, of goods and how they're used for it. So, in other words, but just as seeing about health does indeed belong to the house, in other words, but just as seeing about health does belong to the health house manager and the ruler in a sense, but in another sense not, but rather to the doctor. So in the case of goods, it belongs to the household manager in a sense, but in another sense not, but rather to the subordinate art. In other words, the subordinate art is the person who deals with money making. In other words, the idea of the money maker. This is subordinate art. The household manager is concerned about governing the household and ruling it well. This should be available to all, above all, as was said before, by nature. So all this above, this higher art, is by nature, that in the sense that living well, the concern of living well. For it, for it is a work of nature to provide sustenance to the newly born, derive everything deriving sustenance from what remains to remains of that from which it is born. The art of getting goods relative to crops and animals is thus natural to all. But since it is twofold, as we have said, part of it being commerce and the part of being the art of household management, the later necessary and praised, while the art of exchange is justly blamed, since it's not according to nature but involves taking from others. Usury is most unreasonably hated. Um, in other words, it takes it from others. Usually, usury is most reasonably hated because one's possessions derive from money itself and not from that for which it was supplied. In other words, usury is this get interest making. So usury is this idea that we're gonna do something and you're gonna give me more money for it. I'm gonna make money from it. In other words, it's not an exchange of services. I'm going to give you something and you're going to give me more, and it's going to be beyond what I did of this, right? Um, Usury is seen as is hated because it's because one's possession derived from money. In other words, usury gets wealth from usury means that you get money from money. There's something unnatural about that. This is an unnatural thing is reproducing, making more money. Okay, there's something unnatural in that sense of this. For it came into being for the sake of exchange, but interest actually creates more of it. And it is from this that it gets its name. In other words, offspring are similar to those who give birth to them. And interest is money born from money. So of the sort of good getting, this is the most contrary to nature. Now, 47, in the word for interest is tikos, meaning also be offspring. So that's why he's making the point about this. So therefore, this is going to be a short lesson today because this is about money making, interest making, making money. Of this is the most. In other words, the worst kind of. In other words, exchange is reasonable. In other words, I need exchange. I need something. I have a good, in other words, and some people help facilitate exchange. They're also useful because I have a need. Therefore, people who like retail stores. Retail stores are a mechanism to facilitate to make exchanging of goods and services much more easier. Where if we had to do everything by barter, it would be very difficult, very time consuming. It makes it much more convenient. So I go to one place rather than a lot of places in order to simply just get what things I need. A market, right? This is the market. The market this is the purpose of the market, right? The shop, the market was the market in the first place. And then you go to the market in order to get what you want, right? This is the idea. The modern shop emerged out of the original market activity. And the retail trade, retail exchange, commerce of exchanging of goods and services in both to order to live to sustain our needs, but also to live our life. Right. This is this idea. Now, money comes up as this larger process of money making. He says. Now, the difference here is this is where he talks about this is the most extreme form of money making is money making, you making money out of making money. This usury, right? This is interest. And this is why the word for interest also means offspring, right? It's money begetting money. And this is kind of, and this is why usury is kind of condemned in that sense because it's seen as a mechanism of by which people feel it's unnatural. This is an extreme thing he says here. Um, So, therefore, his real condemnation, and remember, this is he uses the word money making pejoratively, also getting goods pejoratively as for money making. This is this is done very deliberately in this section because there is this kind of perception of the old aristocratic classes that one does not labor. The good men, the good human. I mean, this goes back even to the slave discussion of slavery, right? That the free person should not labor, the unfree should labor. And ideally, their bodies should be made for labor, whereas, in other words, the bodies of the free should not be. But that's kind of weird in that sense. And nature doesn't work that way perfectly in that sense. Um, let's stop here, and we will continue on the next section on chapter 11 next time we meet. Okie dokie. Oh, before I say bye bye, um, if you have any comments or questions, please put it below. Any things you want clarification on, when I see them, I will give you some aspects of clarification. If you have like what you say, don't like, say why. You can say this is the most controversial Aristotle because this is the Aristotle of anti. This is the anti. This is often seen as, oh, Aristotle hates capitalism. No, he doesn't. He's just showing that there's limits to things. Okay. Um, Subscribe so that you get notifications. Share with a friend on social media. Get some more people to join us. Pass out this. Maybe some more interest. Um, Next, least, you can follow me on social media below. You can be if you want to help contribute somehow, you can become a Subscribe Star member or Patreon. Or if you want to do it directly, you can go buy my Lulu book at Lulu or Amazon or any of the online services. It's a notebook for Aristotle's politics. This is a kind of study guide, a Cliff's Notes of Aristotle's politics. It's not a commentary or interpretation. It is a study guide. It breaks up the sections of the politics chapter by chapter. Sometimes chapters are together. It breaks down some of the points. It deals with kind of gives charts and things like this to help you understand and help you to process the various sections of the text, like we're going over here today. And it's very useful. It's not to be done in substitute of reading the text. It is a guide to help with while reading the text. And that's it. I hope you have a good day. Take care.